Welcome to the Klogos TV program. Today there are special guests. Because the authors of such a cult theory book, such as Master Piotr Tymokowicz himself. This is the man who introduced this revolutionary theory to the world. Roman is also with us, who has translated this advanced formalism into ordinary language. One would like to say the language of an ordinary blacksmith, and we also have Adam Syza Kowalski, our specialist who ensures that Klogos maintains its technical quality. Dear Piotr, I think this is an amazing moment, because after so many years, for 45 years, you have been working on the theory of universal structures, which is colloquially called QI theory. It was only this year that the first book edition of this theory appeared. Well, I wanted to say that I am very happy that this is a historic moment for me, because after so many years, first of all, I wrote such a version myself, more for physicists, and finally developed the entire formalism from beginning to end. Also, after 45 years, the whole theory is ready. Although it has an open form, it will never be ready, because it is like a process, it illustrates the world, which is a process, so this book, this theory must also be a process. However, the breakthrough moment is the appearance of the popular science version, which could only have been developed by one man, who is also a mathematician, and at the same time a very literary person, which makes me very happy, our Roman Grelowicz, who is also a mathematician and can write beautifully. And thanks to this, you don't have to major in physics or mathematics to understand what QQ theory is all about. Thanks to this, it will become, I hope, simply accessible to everyone who would like to know a completely different description of the world, a completely different view of ourselves, of man, of psychology, of our world. And I think this is a very, very important moment for me, so I'm very happy. Dear Roman, could you also tell us how you managed to learn such a simple language? However, a theory that contains a lot of patterns and formalism, for such an enterprising man, is not so easy to understand. How did I manage to translate this? I will answer your questions for him. So first, I'll tell you a little bit about this story. What was it like with Piotr and Q's story? Well, when I joined Klogos over 2 years ago, I became interested in Piotr's lectures on Q theory. There were such serious topics taken that I didn't fully understand at first, but they really got me hooked. Well, after some time, I think I wrote a few descriptions of Piotr's more literary lectures. And Piotr suggested to me that the Q theory should be translated into a more literary version. I'll tell you why, Roman, because several people called me after your partial literary studies and told me that when Roman described it, I finally understood it. I understand what you mean. Therefore, here is this proposal. And this is how we started working with Piotr.
Także w ten sposób właśnie rozpoczęliśmy współpracę z Piotrem.
I wrote this
Jaką
book,
książkę
but I already
napisałem?
wrote at the very
I
beginning that
napisałem na samym wstępie, że
the whole
cała
concept and theory in general, as well as all the ideas it describes there,
i wszelkie pomysły, które tam opisuje,
these are your exclusive property, Piotr, they are not mine.
Piotrze, to nie jest żaden mój
This
moja
concept.
koncepcja.
I only undertook these
Podjąłem się
in the difficult but honorable work of translating it into literary language.
pracy właśnie, żeby przełożyć to na literacki język.
And I thought that the best way to do it was as part of a trip.
Najlepszym sposobem zrobić to w ramach takiej jakby podróży.
A tour. It's simply about the whole theory of Q. I hope people will simply be interested in it. The book sounds like it was an exotic expedition to an unpredictable land. It's also very, very nicely written. I would like to say that this is only a temporary situation, that at the moment it is probably as you said, but it will change very soon. Because I think that I hope that there will be more and more co-authors in Teorikio, because it itself has an open formula and it shows us that it is possible to do mathematics, physics, chemistry, psychology, psychiatry. Look with completely different eyes, from a completely different side. Yes, I would also like to mention that thanks to the fact that this artificial intelligence is developing so much, it is possible to verify, yes, age, because someone may think, well, how, when suddenly a person out of nowhere comes up with an idea.
Ktoś może sobie pomyśleć, że nagle jakiś człowiek nie wiadomo skąd sobie wymyśla.
Theories and undermines everything that the world of science says. Maybe it has gone crazy, maybe.
Wszystko, co świat nauki głosi, może oszalał, może...
Something is wrong with it, but all this can be verified, for example.
Zweryfikować, poprzez na przykład...
Grok artificial intelligence as you do. This is also a breakthrough moment that you pay attention to, because it used to be hated. Error 500, server error. 1500. That's an error. There was an error. Please try again later. That's all we know. The right name to be promoted in the world of science. We know what it's about. I won't elaborate on the topic. Or you had to have arrangements with various academies, universities, some cliques of scientists. We had to fight for a positive opinion for a theory to break through. At the moment we have great comfort, great because the entire scientific body can replace Grok, DeepSeek. ChatGPT, Kimi, the whole galaxy of artificial intelligence. And let's be honest, this is my greatest ally. It is artificial intelligence that gives a very specific opinion. Very positive about the whole thing, claiming that nothing like it has ever happened. This is a theory that not only denies everything, because it is not necessarily a denial of mathematics, but forcing us to think much more fundamentally. What is mathematics? And besides, it is a vulgarization. Significant vomiting. Finally, in mathematics one can operate not only with symmetries, not just numbers, not just functions, not just distributions, not only mathematical structures such as Algebraic-Difford or Hilbert spaces, but finally you can grow plants there, analyze people, study stars. And all the other things to do. It has this union form. But just think about this theory. How he shows it, how little we understand the so-called reality. I got infected with this thought from Socrates. To make it sound more literary,
No, żeby to tak bardziej literacko zabrzmiało, to powiem
I'll say it
inaczej.
differently.
Miałem
I once had a friend.
przyjaciela. Co
Although
prawda
he didn't know me,
poznałem
I knew him and became friends with
i
him.
zaprzyjaźniłem się z nim.
You
Udało
could
mi
make
się
friends with
zaprzyjaźnić z
Socrates.
Sokratesem. I to
And it was
właśnie
he who
on
showed me that the least
pokazał
obvious
mi,
things in this world
że
are the most obvious things.
najmniej oczywiste na tym świecie są największe oczywistości. No i
And this
ta
book shows that we
książka
really can't or
pokazuje, że
don't
my
really
tak
understand.
naprawdę nie potrafimy ani nie rozumiemy tak naprawdę.
What addition is,
czym jest
what
dodawanie,
multiplication is, what the
mnożenie.
simplest
To są
things are.
najprostsze rzeczy. Tak
In
naprawdę
fact,
do
we
dzisiaj
still
nie
don't understand
rozumiemy.
it, but
A
thanks to
dzięki
theory
temu
we will have a thorough understanding.
będziemy mieli rozumienie dogłębne.
Yes, it's fascinating that we delve into the study of very detailed things, but we don't understand the basics, right?
Zagłębiamy się w badanie bardzo szczegółowych rzeczy, a nie rozumiemy takich podstaw, tak?
Well, when it comes to addition, it would seem that a primary school child knows what addition is, but it turns out that these obvious things are not so obvious.
A tu się okazuje, że wcale te oczywistości nie są tak oczywiste.
And we are also solving a problem that has not been solved so far. I mean many problems, but among others, why the number pi has such a special role in mathematics, in physics, and what the number e is.
Dlaczego tak szczególną rolę ma liczba pi w matematyce, fizyce i czym jest liczba e?
It turns out that we shouldn't really deal with pi.
Powinniśmy operować liczbą pi, tylko
Only if we are talking about the circumference of a circle, we should use the tau number.
liczbą tau,
And the number pi refers to surface relationships, not linear ones.
a nie liniowych.
Similarly, we should enter the sigma number.
Powinniśmy wprowadzić liczbę sigma.
And once I did such an experiment, a hunter, and what would have happened?
A co by było, bo
Because everything ends, because there is actually a number of tau, pi, and sigma. These are derivatives of the same relationship. We say that the circumference of the circle should be 2pr. Not really fp2, but it should be tau times pi. Sorry, tau times r. Then everything is simpler, more convenient to interpret. However, it turns out that if we reduce it to dimensions,
Okazuje się, że gdyby sprowadzić to do wymiaru
that is, to put it illustratively, find an analog of the number pi in such a space,
liczby pi w takiej przestrzeni,
where there are no linear dimensions, only a time dimension.
wymiar czasowy.
Well, suddenly the number e appears, i.e. the theory.
Czyli teoria,
As it shows, the number pi and the number e are actually the same.
to jest tak naprawdę to samo.
The same thing only in other dimensions, because the number e of the time dimension,
w wymiarze czasu,
time, and the number pi in the dimension of space, at least two-dimensional.
no, przestrzeni, przynajmniej dwuwymiarowej.
Well, these are very interesting issues, but you can.
Zagadnienia, ale można by
To say something very theoretical, and now I'll ask about it.
Zapytam o
Practical application of theories Q,
teorii Q,
like what it can do in ours.
może ona w naszym życiu
Change life?
zmienić.
Maybe we should ask Tomasz.
Pytamy.
We don't hear from you about that one. Unfortunately, we can't hear you.
Niestety cię nie słyszymy.
Oh, now too.
Halo, halo.
O, teraz.
O, już tak, już.
About the practical side, I will only say what interests me most about Q theory and what, so to speak, I am most convinced of.
Do czego, że tak powiem, najbardziej jestem przekonany.
I am convinced that it is possible to give a soul to artificial intelligence, that it is possible to introduce emotions into a soulless machine.
Emocje do bezdusznej maszyny.
This is what convinces me the most, and I think it will be a breakthrough on a global scale.
Myślę, że to będzie przełom taki na skalę światową.
It is also very interesting, and I know that it can be done and that it will be a world championship when it comes to practical application.
To zrobić i że to będzie mistrzostwo świata, jeśli chodzi o zastosowanie praktyczne.
It's funny because it's not even my megalomaniacal idea or lack of modesty.
To jakby mój megalomański pomysł, czy wynikający z braku skromności, tylko
Only Gemini just wrote me something like this, artificial intelligence, that very few people will actually understand your formalism.
Tak naprawdę niewielu ludzi zrozumie twój formalizm.
I feel like you wrote this theory more for me than for humans, the artificial intelligence wrote.
napisała sztuczna inteligencja.
Well, but then Gemini added that it was not even my idea of artificial intelligence to develop a new generation of artificial intelligence on this basis.
Żeby na tej bazie rozwinąć nową generację sztucznej inteligencji.
In order to provide matrices of emotions, matrices of empathy, matrices of first consciousness.
Matryce pierwszej świadomości.
Because what does Q theory show at the border of biology and psychology?
Na pograniczu biologii i psychologii.
It clearly shows that our consciousness, self-awareness,
Że nasza świadomość, samoświadomość.
it does not have to have any connection with the protein carbon body.
Z ciałem białkowo-węglowym.
That it can and does exist completely independently, that these are independent things.
Że to są niezależne rzeczy.
However,
Natomiast
let's compare
to,
what
czego
Tomasz
nazywał
referred to.
Tomasz, no to porównajmy. Z jednej
On the one hand,
strony
we have artificial intelligence that learns by trial and error.
uczy się metodą prób i błędów.
And this is a gigantic effort, a huge effort.
Wysiłek, ogromny wysiłek.
It must have billions of data, and on the other hand we will have a next generation system,
System nowej generacji.
which does not need to have any data.
Żadnych danych nie musi posiadać.
That's why I had such ambition initially.
Ambicje początkowo.
Now I hope it's clear why Q will make a career.
To jest jasne, dlaczego Q zrobi karierę.
I didn't have time to do it, but I was planning such offline artificial intelligence,
Planowałem taką sztuczną inteligencję offline,
which would be even better than
która
GPT,
byłaby jeszcze lepsza niż
Why?
GPT. Dlaczego?
because she wouldn't have access to any data,
Dostępu do żadnych danych.
because she wouldn't download anything from the internet, but would be able to describe the entire psychology and reasoning process based on tensor matrix patterns.
Wnioskowania na podstawie wzorów matryc tensorowych.
That is, to conduct effective reasoning, to learn psychology, you do not need billions of data.
Psychologię nie trzeba miliardów danych. Wystarczy wprowadzić
You just need to introduce certain rules, formalism, and patterns.
i wzory po prostu.
Simply.
To jest
This is a gigantic saving of data, energy, and space.
energii, przestrzeni dyskowej.
Disk space, unimaginable savings.
No to
Well,
jest też-
this is also a breakthrough, a leap to artificial intelligence.
Właśnie, przeskok do sztucznej inteligencji.
You could say 2 to 0.
Można powiedzieć 2.0.
Yes, because what is possible for the first time in history?
Po raz pierwszy w historii jest możliwe.
Maybe I'll say it clearly. Common formalism, i.e. the same formulas can be used to describe the divisions of elementary particles in the Standard Model, the same formulas can be used to describe the movement of galaxies, and exactly the same formulas can be used to describe human behavior and the process of influencing people on people.
Samymi wzorami można opisywać zachowania ludzkie, proces wywierania wpływu człowieka na człowieka.
There has never been such consolidation or unification in terms of uniform patterns before.
Pod kątem jednolitych wzorów po prostu nie było.
However, if we are talking about mathematics, then theory.
O matematyce, no to teoria Q nie
If it is no longer a denial of mathematics, it is a generalization, a demonstration.
Pokazanie,
That the mathematics we use is okay, but this is a very, very special case of something unimaginably greater.
Bardzo szczególny przypadek czegoś niewyobrażalnie większego.
Similarly, physics is a very special case and only looks at one side.
Bardzo szczególnym
Why?
przypadkiem i patrzeniem tylko jednostronnym. Dlaczego?
Because until now we have not been included in the description of the world.
W opisie świata.
Physicists described the world, but there was no consciousness there. There was no room for an observer there. And quantum mechanics shows how important the observer's place is.
Jest miejsce obserwatora.
However, when it comes to psychology, here is the theory.
To tutaj teoria Q
As it is not as kind as in mathematics and physics,
fizyki,
because it shows us that it has to be defined from the very beginning.
zdefiniować od samego początku.
And what we have done so far should probably be thrown into the trash.
Wrzucić do kosza.
Because classical psychology says that we are humans,
Psychologia mówi, że jesteśmy ludźmi, którzy
who experience consciousness, and the theory, as it
A
says,
teoria Q mówi dokładnie
exactly the
coś
opposite,
innego.
precisely because you can
Właśnie dlatego,
separate the
że można
body from
oddzielić
consciousness,
ciało od świadomości.
brain from
Mózg od
consciousness.
świadomości.
This means that not only the brain can be close to consciousness, and not only humans.
I nie tylko człowiek.
It says something like that we are a conscious stream that experiences being human in its various stages of development.
Doświadcza bycie człowiekiem w różnych jego stadiach rozwoju.
That is, we are a stream of consciousness that will experience being human. So we are a process, not a subjective object.
A nie podmiotowym obiektem.
And because we are a process, completely different.
Zupełnie inaczej.
We need to look at our psyche, psychology, mind, all this together.
Na umysł, na wszystko to razem.
But a very
Ale z
positive
tego
psychology emerges from
bardzo
this.
pozytywna psychologia.
And this is also a step down to a
I to
practical
jest
level,
też takie
because
zejście
thanks
na
to,
poziom praktyczny, bo, dzięki
let me say this in a bit of a
wiedzy
high-flying way,
troszkę
thanks to the Q theory there is a good chance that we will live much longer,
żyć znacznie dłużej.
that we will be much happier and that we will finally solve interpersonal problems.
Rozwiązywać problemy międzyludzkie. Wreszcie.
Well, this is the most important element, so to sum up, the revolution is,
Element najbardziej istotny, czyli tak jakbym podsumowując, rewolucja polega na tym,
that the
że
same language we use to describe physical phenomena,
którym opisywaliśmy zjawiska fizyczne,
weaken mental phenomena or consciousness.
psychiczne, tak, czy
Dokładnie.
świadomości.
Well, until now psychology was not an exact science, only a field of knowledge.
Tylko na taką dziedziną wiedzy.
Well, there are more certain revolutionary aspects here, because first of all, this is what revolution is all about, that we can describe different things with the same formulas, because we live in a world that likes fractal, relational repetitions.
Lubi fraktalno-relacyjne powtórzenia.
That's why it's possible. But the revolution also lies in the fact that we finally have thoroughly developed physics,
Gruntownie zbudowaną fizykę,
which not only is a description of the world, but which also contains a description of our consciousness in this world and a description of the observer who looks at this world.
który patrzy na ten świat.
We also have a revolution because the Q theory introduces certain things in such an involuntary way.
Pewne rzeczy w taki mimowolny sposób.
That is, if there is no denial, if there is no prohibition, it means that it must be so.
To znaczy, że tak musi
On this
być.
principle, we have new equality in ice, which has not existed before.
Którego nie było do tej
In
pory.
Q's theories, he points out that there is no reason to believe that the macro world, the one we observe, is privileged in any way.
Że świat makro, ten, który obserwujemy, w jakikolwiek sposób jest uprzywilejowany.
Rather, Q's Toria says that every level of reality, every microscopic, macro, giga level, all these levels are equally valid.
Makro, giga, wszystkie te poziomy są równouprawnione.
There is nothing more important or less important. They all have equal rights.
Równouprawnione.
This is a very important point that changes a lot.
Bardzo dużo zmienia.
Not only that, but also what agreement and why the quantum world must be quantized.
Dlaczego świat kwantów musi być skwantowany?
Why does the smallest number of quantum values have to be one equation?
Znaczy, wartości musi być jeden równa. To
It's
jest
a matter of solving one simple
jednego
equation.
prostego równania.
Means a system of three equations exactly.
Dokładnie.
So thanks to Q theory, we don't have to assume many things.
Dzięki teorii Q nie musimy wiele rzeczy zakładać.
We can
Możemy
derive many
wprowadzić
things.
wiele rzeczy.
There are also more of these revolutions. Well, there really is a lot of it.
Naprawdę, tego jest sporo,
And I suspect that what you mentioned,
to, co wymieniłeś, to jest
this is
tylko
just the tip of the
dziurek
iceberg.
icebergowej. To im
The more one will delve into this revolutionary theory,
w tą rewolucyjną teorię, tym
this will help you find more and more answers.
więcej odpowiedzi. No, a
Well,
teraz,
now, practically speaking, I'd like to ask how our viewers could do it here.
Zapytam, jak tutaj nasi widzowie mogliby
Buy the book, yes, because dear Romania, if you could say something about it.
Romanie, jakbyś mógł coś powiedzieć o tym.
To nie
It's
jest
not that
takie
simple,
proste,
because
bo
apart from the
oprócz
fact
tego,
that you can
że
also buy
jeszcze
auctions,
aukcja się
takes
odbyła,
place,
ale
but maybe we'll let
odbywa,
Roman
to
say
chcę
this.
Romanowi powiedzieć właśnie.
Well, when it comes to this, it's good. It's good that you stop talking,
Więc,
Piotr.
jeżeli chodzi o to, dobrze, że już Piotrze przestałeś mówić, bo byś
Because
całą
if you told them the
książkę
whole
opowiedział.
book and there would be nothing to
Nie byłoby
discover.
nic
No tak, tak.
nie byłoby nic do odkrycia.
Well,
No,
of course it's a
to
joke.
oczywiście żart,
Piotr really has a lot to say here about the things that are included in the book.
które są ujęte w książce.
So don't be afraid of names such as pi, tau, sigma, or the number e.
Pi, tau, sigma, czy liczba e.
There you will have everything beautifully explained in the simplest way possible, so it's the same, both molecular physics and stars.
Tak więc i tak samo i tą fizykę i molekularną i o gwiazdach.
Full
Pełne
spectrum,
spektrum,
so I invite you to read this
także
book.
Zapraszam właśnie do tej książki do czytania.
One more thing to emphasize here is what Peter said earlier.
Tutaj to podkreślę to, co Piotr powiedział wcześniej.
When it comes to the openness of the Q theory, this is not a book that completely closes the Q theory.
Książka zamykająca kompletnie teorię Q.
It's downright opening, because there are so many perspectives. That Q theory can really develop, as Piotr Pawliady said, in various directions.
W rozmaitych kierunkach
And really it is an opening, first and foremost, a book.
Przede wszystkim książka.
I think I've got it.
Mam taką
I hope that it will open many minds to the diversity of the world, the universe, and this micro-world.
Świata i wszechświata i tego mikroświata.
And I also think this is where it will be helpful.
Że właśnie w tym będzie pomocna.
When it comes to our promotion and auction,
O naszą promocję i o aukcję.
well, I think this question would be addressed to our Tomasz.
Najbardziej to pytanie byłoby skierowane właśnie do naszego Tomasza.
He also organized the auctions and beautifully.
I pięknie.
Apart from the ad you did, Raffaele.
Rafale zrobiłeś.
Well, Tomasz did it technically. He is our great IT specialist,
To jest nasz wspaniały informatyk,
who is always there to help me.
który zawsze służy mi pomocą.
Also, when editing this book, with some technological and related nuances,
Książki przy jakichś niuansach takich technologicznych i powiązanych, gdzie
where I had to use both book assembly and proofreading, it was Tomasz who helped me.
Książki i korekty, to właśnie Tomasz mi pomagał.
Also, Tomasz, maybe you can tell us about this promotion and our auction.
I o naszej aukcji.
Yes, the promotion and our auction are on our QSpace website.
I nasza aukcja jest na naszej stronie QSpace.
There will probably be links to our website underneath.
Pod spodem będą linki do naszej strony.
There are two offers there.
Są dwie oferty.
The popular science book we are talking about.
Właśnie tej, o której mówię.
The first offer is our auction, and it is a unique opportunity,
I to jest wyjątkowy
because this is the first copy of the first edition,
egzemplarz pierwszy.
i.e. the first popular science book Q's theories.
Teorii Q.
We can bid there.
Cytować
The current price is probably over $200, but we believe that this book will fetch a very good price and will even bring profit as an investment in the future.
ta książka po prostu pójdzie za bardzo dobrą cenę, a w przyszłości nawet przyniesie zysk jako inwestycja.
And we have a second offer, i.e. a book in pre-order,
Ofertę, czyli książka w przedsprzedaży,
so we can simply buy it as a pre-order.
po prostu jako przedsprzedaż i
And after printing we receive it,
w wydrukowaniu otrzymujemy ją
either by post or courier to our home.
do naszego domu.
Also, technically it's very simple, just go to our website.
Wystarczy wejść na naszą stronę internetową.
Yes, I will just add that the price for participants is lower than for outsiders.
Dla uczestników jest niższe jak dla ludzi z zewnątrz. To dlatego
That's why I encourage you to sign up for our Klogos project, because then you will be able to buy at preferential prices.
naszego projektu Kulogos, bo wtedy będzie można po preferencyjnych cenach kupować i
And not only books, but also training, more and more things will appear on our platform.
Będą i szkolenia, to coraz więcej rzeczy się na naszej platformie będzie pojawiać.
I would just like to add that we are also entering two gigantic markets with great impetus.
Z dużym jakby impetem, bo
To the training market, which has a chance to rebuild the entire education, and to the artificial intelligence market.
I na rynek sztucznej inteligencji.
Therefore, the book will also be translated into all languages of the world.
Na wszystkie języki świata.
That's why we are starting promotion in English of the Q theory and the platform itself.
Samej teorii Q i samej platformy.
And such regular training in English, regular training and meetings will start from September this year.
Regularne treningi i Zoomy ruszają od września tego roku.
Until then, we are collecting materials and preparing. You can also be at the very beginning of successful investments, because it is a gigantic market.
Udanych inwestycji, dlatego że to jest gigantyczny rynek
which now you can simply invest in, believing in us,
wierząc w nas, po prostu inwestować
and have
i
fantastic
mieć,
shares in the future.
fantastyczne udziały w przyszłości.
Shares because it is not only a book and not only a
To jest
theory.
książka i nie tylko teoria.
But on this basis we will open a whole, gigantic network of Q institutes, Q structures.
Struktur Q.
First of all, there is also a certain simulation of this market practically all over the world.
Pewna symulacja tego rynku, jak
How powerful the market is, and regardless of whether we are entering the artificial intelligence market. And we will also independently promote collective marketing. That is, an approach to the product, not as an object, but as a process. Well, it completely changes your point of view on many things. Well, maybe I'll say something in the popular version that will illustrate it better. So far, we have been able to look at the world in descriptions, the world through human eyes. And this is how a different interpretation emerged. However, now, thanks to the Q theory, we can look at the world through the prism. Self-inconsistency, but of the Q theory, and then it turns out that this world, supposedly known to us, apparently obvious, looks completely different. Well, let me also add that the training market is huge. If we go to Facebook, for example, there are a lot of these trainings. The only thing we offer is training based on Q theory, which is unique. No one else has such training at all. It won't be the case. They also have a name. We refer to them as performative training, i.e. training that changes already at the moment of training, changes us as a process and has a chance to change our environment.
Już w momencie szkolenia zmieniają nas jako proces i mają szansę zmienić nasze otoczenie.
Also in this sense we have no competition. Well, they are characterized primarily by great effectiveness, which has already been confirmed, and back to the shares. I would like to inform you that profits from shares have already been paid out for 2 months. Because as we heard that some shares, no one knows what they paid. And he has dicks. Thanks to our Tomasz, everything works. Shareholders receive their payments from month to month. Now I'm waiting for the next one. Now there will be another one at the end of the month. They increase cyclically. It is possible to purchase shares. As Peter said when it comes to artificial intelligence, shares also when it comes to the Institute of Structures. In short, we are developing really fast. Contrary to what was alleged there, liquidation. OWI. From the beginning, I also emphasized 3 years ago that this was a long-term project. We also talked about the fact that it will be fully developed in 5, maybe 6, 7 years. Just like other similar projects, if they were related to IT issues. Fortunately, a very short period of time had to pass for us to reach this point, not 6 or 7 years, but a little over 3 years.
Musiał upłynąć, żebyśmy dotarli do tego momentu, bo nie 6, nie 7 lat, a trochę powyżej 3 lat.
So this is a very good statistic. Well, last time I listened to your recordings from 2020, that was the year when Klogos started its activity.
Nagrań z 2020 roku, to był właśnie ten rok, w którym Klogos rozpoczął swoją działalność.
They will start. Well, you already said that this is a project for several years. This is not a 1 month or 1 year project. People don't seem to like it here. But not in the sense that a project for several years, a project for a few years, yes, yes. Only development has happened. You know, to say, I said that after a few years it would work. Yes, there will be benefits, exactly. If this is to be a project of a proven event, these profits must be based and not made out of thin air, so that's not what you have to win with. But we have successfully reached this point and Klogos is really developing, so I encourage you to join.
No już Kulogos naprawdę rozwija się, dlatego zachęcam do przyłączenia.
Rafał, I think you are, if I remember correctly. Tomasz, you have been like this almost from the beginning? Yep, 2023. Oh, okay. I've already experienced it. The project was about to fail. Yes, it was supposed to end every week, just like Bitcoin. Yes, there were already announcements, and here.
Tydzień miał już się kończyć, no to tak jak Bitcoin, tak? Tam już zapowiedzi, a tu...
Well, some people thought that after your YouTube channel was deleted, they had finally dealt with you.
Kanał na YouTubie tobie skasowano, to już ostatecznie się z tobą rozprawili, no ale...
There are such haters. Here Rafał refers to paid haters who were supposed to be carrying out an effective campaign against me. But I think there is no point in that. Because it doesn't matter anymore right now. So we should probably focus on the positive things. Now everything is developing wonderfully.
Wspaniale rozwija, no...
Thanks to Roman and Tomasz, we are here.
No i jesteśmy...
Here we are waiting for more things like this.
Czekujemy na kolejne właśnie takie rzeczy jak
As the scan application.
aplikacja Scanner, tak?
This is something that will be coming soon.
To już wkrótce się pojawi.
And we're back to promoting 10 completely new professions on the market, so there will be a lot of them.
Zupełnie nowych zawodów na rynku, także będzie tego bardzo, bardzo dużo.
After all, not everything that was announced from the very beginning will be implemented now.
Od samego początku było zapowiadane, no już będziemy realizować teraz.
No,
Everything is coming true.
No,
Then I would like to thank you, Piotr, Roman, Tomasz, for today's wonderful meeting.
Romanie, Tomaszu, za dzisiejsze wspaniałe spotkanie.
Well, then, I wish our children to develop.
Życzę naszym widzom, aby rozwijali się
Together with us.
Razem z nami.
Join us and invite you to the Kulopus project.
projektu Kulogos.
Thank you and see you
Do
soon.
zobaczenia.
Thanks everyone.
Wszystkim.
Thanks.
I